the things I'm chairman of, I'm not going to be the one to throw you out, but then the mentee thinks in his little pea brain, well, they're going to love Dan more than they love me. Well, they already love me more than they love you anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I mean, I don't need 20 grand. I don't need 50 grand. I don't need 100 grand. But when we sell, I don't mind eating last as long as I eat most. So when we sell, because I'm a big equity holder in these deals, and when we hit the cash register, I'm going to be making tens of millions. And that's fine. Once in a while, I don't think I've collected a bonus out of any of the deals. We've done deals in at least 5 years, maybe longer. But that's my model. That's not your model. Yes, sir.
Are you like paying CEO salary or CFO salary?
No, I'm paid nothing.
Okay, but what about if you have?
If you have a CEO, well, I haven't got the salaries yet. I just covered bonuses. Your CEO and your CFO, when you do deals, are going to get a commensurate salary. If you're a $10 million company, I mean, maybe the CEO makes 150 and the CFO makes 100. I don't know, whatever the commensurate for your industry. If you're a $100 million deal, the CEO probably makes 500 and the CFO probably makes 350 or 400. But whatever's commensurate. IT, the salaries are higher. Healthcare, bedpans, they're lower.
What's commensurate?
Commensurate means whatever the industry standard is.
That's the CEO and CFO for the holding company, not the
correct.
Acquired.
The holding company, correct.
There's gonna have small CEOs.
Oh no, well, no. No. You're going to pick a CEO. Well, you do what you want, but you're getting all these businesses because hopefully you're going to find a CEO that's worth a shit. You may make 10 acquisitions and nobody's worthy of being CEO. And so I've seen you kids, not in a good way. Well, nobody's really measured up to be CEO, so I'm going to stay CEO. Is that self-serving? Yeah. We've made 10 acquisitions and we haven't found one fucking idiot that's better than you. I'm surprised all 10 aren't better than you. But because you don't want to give up being CEO. And then if I'm in the deal, or if you're still in the year program, I'll say, okay, I'm going to make a decision for you. I'll make it easy. We're picking this guy to be CEO. Because at some level of size of acquisition, the banks won't give you any more money because you don't know what the fuck you have no background in running these things. So, and the last thing you want is when the bank tells you got to get out. And I've seen that. It's like a prize fighter stays too long. A little $8, $10, $15 million company, I mean, you can manage. A $150 million company, you can't. And the banks won't loan you any money anymore, and they'll threaten to call the loans. And that's normally because you've done something wrong. If you've done nothing wrong, then they're not going to step in. But a inexperienced CEO has to make decisions every day. And you may make a mistake, and the bank will give you the benefit of the doubt the first 2 or 3, but then they'll go to the board, they'll go to the chairman, and they say the kid's got to go. I mean, and even if the chairman says that he supports you, I mean, the kid's fucking things up left, right, and center. The kid's got to go. But before that, the chairman should have sat you down and talked to you and give you enough father-son talk or whatever. But you still have most of the shares. And so you can, press your weight. But eventually, when a bank pulls the plug on you, you're through. I mean, you could be through forever. Because when banks pull the plug on you, I mean, it's a very small world. The last thing you want is when the bank pulls the plug. That means you stayed too long. You've stayed too long. And you're in over your head. And unfortunately, you don't know when you're in over your head. Because you don't know what you don't know. There's covenants and there's things, and your CFO should keep you straight. There's covenants, you have to have certain averages and leverages and certain ratios and all this bullshit that you don't know anything about. Your debt to equity ratio, and this to the ratio, and that ratio, and all you're interested in, all the questions, How much bonus do I get? Is it 60-40 or 80-20? Those are the questions. You haven't asked me one question about, well, what about the debt-to-equity ratio? Because you got no fucking money, you want to put some money in your jeans. Am I the only one that's noticed that? You got to maintain ratios.
What's the ratio?
It varies industry to industry, loan to loan. It depends what the covenants say. The loan covenants. That's the agreement that the loan agreement that you agreed to.
What's your bet fan example? Average.
Debt to equity 2-to-1. 2-to-1. Yeah, how come they're not interested in how to pay the banks back? All they want to know is how much money they put in their pocket. But you're no different than, I'm teasing you now, but all the groups are the same, believe me. It's not, well, you're the only ones. You want to know, what about my pocket? What am I putting here? Yeah.
So as you roll up, obviously you have to reduce the debt and replace it with equity.
Yes.
You're exiting, you want.
Yeah. No, they want to reduce. They as you roll it, they want to keep putting more money in their pocket. See, nobody's asked me how do we reduce the debt, but they just want more money in their pocket. But you're right. You're absolutely correct. Now, see, he's got gray hair, so he didn't just fall off the turnip truck. But you have to ultimately pay these fucking loans off. You can't just keep shoving money in your pocket. Sounds good. That would be a great model, wouldn't it? Just,
You don't pay the loans off when you close.
Well, yeah. But you're going to be paying down the loans.
Yeah.
But then ultimately the payoff is when you go public and you raise all this cash and you pay everybody off. Or you refinance the whole deal again. Now, I don't like to pay off all the loans when I go public. I like to refinance. Yet again.
But you keep the payments. You pay the minimum back off the debt. So you've got.
Well, no, not necessarily the minimum. You pay what you agreed to in the covenants of the loan agreement. That's what you pay.
Like your mortgage payment.
Correct. Similar. Yes, sir.
How many years do you still have a loan? What's the business's life?
Well, there's 25-year loan. Depending on the size of the business, they're not going to give you a 25-year loan on a fucking $3 million acquisition. But $10
$10 million.
$10 million, 7 to 10 years. Yes, sir.
A lot of the questions that we're asking, like when we go public, that's all 5 years from now. We're not going to remember that question. How are we?
No, the only thing they're going to remember is he already remembers 60-40. The only thing he's remembered so far, 60-40, because yesterday I said the split, and you're right, I did say, I know what I said, and the 60 what I just gave, it wasn't 60-40, and he wanted to know why it wasn't 60-40, because he was getting the 60, or were you getting the 60 or the 40? Oh, he was only going to get the 40. No, but you're right. You're right, and in really hot markets, they're more liberal with how much money you can take out. Wrongfully, they shouldn't be, but they are. Right now, I think I told you, less than 5% of the people that are working in the financial industry were around during the 87 stock market crash. That's bad. It transcends being bad, actually. It's worse than bad. Because and a lot of the stuff now is computer trading and automatic stops, etc. When the shit hits the fan, I'm not predicting that, but if and when the shit hits the fan, it's going to be ugly. Back in 87, you were told, go to lunch, don't answer the phone. Most of Wall Street, go to lunch, don't answer the phone. Go for a drink, don't answer the phone. Come back tomorrow. Millions of people are calling Merrill Lynch, whoever. Because no matter what you tell them, when the market's down 60%, can it go to zero, they're going to ask you. Well, not a Bitcoin could, but other than Bitcoin, the answer is probably no. So they said, go to lunch, go to have a drink, and don't answer the phone. Now the young kids, are the young kids going to listen? You don't listen to me. So if you don't listen to me, why would the young kids that are the traders, etc., go to lunch and turn off their computers or. So it's going to be a whatever. I'm not suggesting that's going to happen, but if it ever happens again, it's going to be a bloodbath, big carnage. And all your little 401ks, and all your little IRAs, and all your little pension plans are going to disappear to fucking zero. And I'm going to laugh, and Sally and I are going to laugh. Sally won't laugh, I will. Sally's a nice person. Nice, remember what nice means? Whenever Sally hears, that means idiot, dear. I mean, so it's not a compliment. But I'll laugh, I'm going to be fucking hooting, I'll laugh till I shit. That's how hard I'm going to fucking laugh when you lose all your money. But I'll even laugh harder when the fucking YouTubers. I'll shit and piss myself when you lose all your money. I ought to get a couple of death threats tomorrow. Yeah. Oh, somebody was complaining. Let's see, who was sitting? Anyway, the YouTubers always got something to say. Yeah. Okay, so now we've got lawyers, accountants. I told you how the bonuses go. Now the salaries you're going to be paying should only be paid to the executive directors, which are working. They're the ones that are working there 8 to 5 or 9 to 6 or 7 to 7 or whatever. And it's commensurate. It's whatever the going rate is at that time. Now, if it's a $10 million company, they're not going to be paying anybody $2 million a year. Whatever, and there's studies that are put out by, the various associations, what the salaries are. But there's no studies. You can pay whatever the company can afford in bonuses. And you can pay bonuses 2, 3, 4, 5 times salaries on a yearly basis, as long as you're doing deals.
From the working capital.
Correct. Well, we call it working capital. Working capital is supposed to be working capital. But I mean, the working capital is not defined that you can't pay bonuses from it. Now, depending on how your articles of incorporation are written, and I don't want to get too detailed because you cannot pay dividends unless you make money. But we're not going to pay dividends. Making money means after-tax profit. But your lawyer, in-house people, plus your law firm will structure all that. Don't get involved in that. Just that when I sit down, I say, okay, what's the downside for the board in this agreement, if any? And they'll say, well, you can't pay dividends unless you have after-tax profit. Blah 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 blah. That's fine. And so then, because the directors are not likely to read all this shit, they're going to sign that day at that meeting. Doesn't mean they don't have the right to read it. I'm not telling you not to let them see it. But before the board meeting, we haven't talked about it, you're sending out an agenda 2 weeks before. You're sending out all the things that they're going to have to approve 2 weeks before, so they have time to comment and read it and shit like that. But that's easy. That's, as my daughter would say, that's easy peasy. And then, but once you get on a treadmill or not treadmill, the road of doing deals, I mean, they ask less and less questions, and that's why a lot of the companies get in trouble, because the directors get satiated, and some of these directors, they were talking about Wynn Corporation, the guy from Vegas, he's got some of the directors have been on there 30, 40 years. Apparently, in their 80s. And he obviously keeps them there because they're loyal. And now with the new corporate governance, I mean, a director, they say the average CEO of a Fortune 1000 company lasts, I think, 6.5 years, call it 7 years. But the directors, or they're 20 years. So, I mean, the directors should be rolled every 4 or 5 years. But you're going to be out. By the time it's time to roll your directors, you'll be out. And then not all the directors are going to want to go on the second deal with you. You know, they make a few $1 million, that's it. They want to really, not do anything. Some of them will. The younger directors will want to go the second time around. Very few of the guys, when you get to a third time around, you're doing this 15 years, I mean, very few of the directors will still be there. Because, they've made enough money in their mind. They served their purpose. They supported you. They supported the shareholders. And so then you find new ones, which you can find easily. And you can find them a lot easier when you've done 10 years of deals. I mean, it won't be like you're building the first board. They'll be coming to your office. You'll be coming to your office. Any questions about that? Somebody's hand. Yes, sir.
So that means for each industry, you have to have a dream team.
No, I mean you should not be rolling up, but one industry at a time. One industry at a time. When you exit, you're either going to stay in that industry or you're going to move to another industry. Some of the directors may or may not stay with you. Some of the directors may not be qualified. If you do a healthcare roll-up the first time, and let's say you're going to go and do financial technology the second time, most of the board members aren't going to be qualified to be your board the second time. Some of them will want to stay because they like the money. But I mean, you need to present a platform of directors that makes sense to the financial institutions. And generally speaking, a healthcare board will not qualify for a financial technology, for example, company. Different skill sets, different experience, etc. Now, some of the board members, I'm a generalist, so I mean, I can be on a lot of different kind of boards. Although I'm known as an oil and gas guy, which is always amused me, because I'm not, but I'm a generalist. The generalist will be able to move from industry to industry if you have a couple of generalists. But for sure, your industry experts won't. Your industry experts in healthcare are not going to be able to go to financial technology or whatever the other thing you're going to do. And, I expect healthcare is going to be hot forever. So if you stay in healthcare, it may not be assisted living. It may be some other aspect of healthcare. And so then the guys and gals can stay. You had a question, Paul?
Yes, when you have a lot of smaller deals, at what point of time do the executives work on site and what size of the company?
It depends. But I mean, when you're 10 million revenue, you're going to have real executives in the company. At 1 million revenue, you may not. 10 million, you will. Because you're not going to be running it. Yes, Paul? Yeah, they're going to be on the board, and but I mean, fingers crossed. And I don't like to use that methodology, fingers crossed. But in one of your acquisitions, you're going to want somebody that's worth a shit running them. I was accused many years ago that I bought a big company only for its management team. And there's some accuracy to that, because we had grown to a size that were overwhelming to, Remember, I wasn't an oil and gas guy. My lawyer wasn't an oil and gas guy. My accountant wasn't an oil and gas guy. Yet we were the three biggest shareholders. So we had to get somebody in there that knew what the fuck oil and gas was about. Okay, YouTube.